The NL Sports Central beginning, guys, our 2024 season predictions for the LSU Tigers, the team that went 10-3 overall in the 2023 season. This was a talented team that had a brutal schedule last season. You look at this offense. Offensively, this was a team that could have been a national contender. It was just the defense that was kind of an issue for LSU. But how will this team be in 2024, and what can we expect out of the Tigers in this upcoming season? That's what we'll be talking about here today. We'll be looking at the players this team will be losing and returning and predict their schedule top to bottom in this video. So with that, let's get started with a quick recap of 2023. Once again, the record being 10-3. This team took on Florida State in week 1. This was a really challenging way to start the season. I would say Florida State with Jordan Travis, they were probably a top 4 team in the country if you look at them all around. A really strong, balanced team last season. So to lose to them in week 1 was definitely brutal, but this team put up some really impressive performances, though, otherwise. They put up 72 on Grambling. They beat Mississippi State 41-14, but then a couple weeks later lost to Ole Miss in a shootout, 55-49. Still remember this one. I mean, for LSU last season, the offense was good enough for this team. I mean, when you consider Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman, Malik Neighbors, who's going to be a star receiver, I really do believe that in the NFL coming up. This was an offense that could have won it all this season, I feel like. But it was just the defense that was a looming issue for LSU, and in the end, it just couldn't happen for LSU last season. But beat Mizzou, it turned out to be really good last year, beat Auburn and Army as well, and then lost to Alabama and Tuscaloosa. This game was also within reach, but once again, the defense was the main issue that came back to bite there. And then beat Florida, Georgia State, Texas A&M to finish out the regular season, and also beat Wisconsin in the Relia Quest Bowl to finish out the season. So it was a 10-win season for LSU, got up to 10-3, which is a good season, but I feel like when you consider the talent that this team had, it feels like LSU could have been better last season. But once again, when this team played as brutal of a schedule as they did, Alabama was a college football playoff team last year. Florida State absolutely could have been. Ole Miss was kind of on the outside as well. So it was a really challenging schedule for sure, especially having to go on the road there. But not a bad season and definitely something to build on. Looking forward to 2024 now with your roster preview. Jaden Daniels is gone. Garrett Nussmeier is coming back, though it appears he is the starter for 2024. So we'll get to see Nussmeier a bit more. We did see him in the Relia Quest Bowl against Wisconsin, and he's the guy I'm optimistic about. He is not Jaden Daniels for sure, though. I mean, when you consider Jaden Daniels last season, just 3,800 yards of passing, 40 touchdowns over 4 picks, a 72% completion rate, and that doesn't even include his rushing stats. I mean, he was the lead rusher on this team, and it wasn't even close last season. So not having Jaden Daniels around is going to be significant for sure, especially considering how big of a part he was of this offense. But the backfield, Logan Diggs is gone, Josh Williams returning, and then you lose Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, but you do have Kyron Lacey coming back, who was the third wideout, and then your top tight end as well in Mason Taylor. You look at this defense, you lose 2 on the D-line, 2 linebackers, and then 1 in the secondary. So the defense loses a few, but overall this is also a team that's done fairly well in the transfer portal. So I'm really not too concerned there. But this is, I mean, the main story, though, is no Jaden Daniels and no Malik Neighbors. How is this offense going to be without 2 significant players like that? I mean, it's really tough to replace a guy like Jaden Daniels. And so, I mean, Nussmeier is probably not going to be at the same level as Jaden Daniels. That's pretty much a given. But, I mean, there is potential in him, and there's definitely some optimism around this offense looking forward to 2024. So could this team be an SEC dark horse in 2024? I mean, with Texas coming in, I mean, OU's obviously coming in too, but Texas is they're the big name coming in for 2024. I feel like Georgia and Texas are probably your 2 leaders in the SEC looking forward to the season. Alabama not far behind, Ole Miss not far behind. I would probably put LSU in that same tier as Alabama and Ole Miss as of now. I just don't know that this team is on the same level as a Georgia or a Texas right now, but this is a team that could cause some issues, though, for sure, and definitely be a contender in the conference this season. Looking at the transfer portal and recruiting now, A.J. Swan is coming in from Vanderbilt. He might be an impact player in the future here. Logan Diggs, running back, is off to Ole Miss. C.J. Daniels coming in from Liberty. So you do have 2 receivers here, C.J. Daniels and then Xavier Thomas. Both of these guys are expected to be starters in 2024, so you can keep an eye on them for sure. Got Gilbert coming in for the defensive secondary. You do lose Welch and Yates, two from the secondary off to different places. But recruiting-wise, this team has been incredible. 7th nationally, 4th in the SEC, got a 5-star, and 19 4-stars coming in as well. So the recruiting class is really strong. I think the future is bright for LSU. Got this team at an 8 on the future forecast. I feel like this season, we'll look at the schedule in just a second here, but the schedule actually sets it pretty well for this team as well to potentially make a run and have a pretty successful season, much more so than last year. I feel like if LSU had this year's schedule last year, this team could have absolutely been in the college football playoff last year and maybe competing for a national championship. But once again, it was kind of, the defense was a big issue though. So, there's no way to really say that for sure. But, this is a team with a bright future, I feel like, and they should be in the upper tier of the SEC for many years to come, I would assume. But with that, let's take a look at the schedule now. Looking forward to 2024. Got USC in Vegas there in week 1. USC next season is not the same team. It would have been fun to see USC against LSU last season with Jaden Daniels against Caleb Williams, but this season is a much different story. LSU is definitely, I think they've got the upper hand in that matchup for sure. USC, not expecting too much out of them. So I think as of now, that's definitely a winnable week 1 game. Nicholls in week 2, then South Carolina on the road in week 3. And then you got UCLA at home. This is now an SEC Big Ten matchup. It's going to take a little time to get used to that, but LSU is playing 2 Big Ten teams in the first month with UCLA and USC. Then you got South Alabama at home, Ole Miss at home, big game there. Arkansas, Texas A&M both on the road. And then November, you got Alabama at home, Florida on the road, and then 2 home games, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, both at home to finish out the regular season. So looking at the first month, USC, once again, really don't expect too much out of them, but I do think they at least put up a fight there and keep it close. But either way, I do expect a win there for sure for LSU. Nicholls week 2, easy win. South Carolina on the road week 3. I feel like LSU is definitely better than South Carolina, but going on the road there early in the season, I would say don't overlook that one. It's going to be closer than some might expect, but LSU does get the win there. And then UCLA, I think they're the worst of the 4 newcomers to the Big Ten for sure. I think that's an easy team to beat this season, so you take care of them no problem. So that's a 4-0 start. I think it's actually 5-0 with South Alabama beating them pretty easily. Ole Miss at home, though. This is one of those games that's really pretty much a coin toss. Both teams are on a similar level for sure. Ole Miss's offense, I think, will be better, but LSU's defense might be improved enough to the point where they could win it. Either way, I feel like Ole Miss's offense is going to take control of that game, and they're going to find a way to beat LSU. But with the Tigers being at home, that's why I'm so hesitant to pick Ole Miss there, is because of how strong of a home field advantage LSU has. But my gut's just telling me lean Ole Miss there, so that's what I'm going to do. But that's one of those games that is really a huge coin toss and could totally go either way. Arkansas on the road, I think you beat them, really not expecting too much out of them. Texas A&M on the road, this is one that I really had a tough time with as well. The Aggies next season are a big wild card team. They could be 5-7, or they could also be a 10-win team. I think with having Mike Elko in there, a new coaching staff is really a good thing. I think Texas A&M improves this season. They at least are, I would say, a 7 or 8 win team, and that's, I think, going to be good enough to beat LSU, especially with Texas A&M being at home there. But it's one of those games that could really go either way, and that's the thing about October for LSU, is this team could totally go 3-0, but they could also definitely go 1-2. And same with November. November is a pretty challenging month, but I actually have been going undefeated in November. I think you beat Alabama, which is a huge win there. In a close one, I do think the Crimson Tide take a step back this season with the new coaching staff, the new era, and everything like that. So I think you beat Alabama, which is a huge win. And then you also beat Florida on the road. You took care of Vanderbilt, no problem. And then you got Oklahoma in rivalry week. This will be a fun one for sure. And OU, I think, is kind of, I feel like they're a step down from LSU this season. They're still going to be a good team, though. That's not a team to overlook, and I do think you end up getting a nice win against them. So I'll say this. I got 10-2 for LSU this season. I think the schedule is pretty manageable for an SEC schedule. You play some pretty tough teams. Ole Miss is going to be really good. Alabama's going to be good. Texas A&M could be good. Same with Oklahoma. But in comparison to a lot of SEC schedules, this one's actually pretty manageable. I think 10 wins is very much attainable for LSU this season. I think the record's 10-2 this season for LSU. It's just a matter of what 2 games they lose. It could be Alabama and Texas A&M. It could be Alabama and Ole Miss, or maybe Oklahoma. Just some way, somehow, I think this team loses 2 games, but I think a 10-win season is very much reasonable for LSU this season. Here's the range. I think 12-0 is the ceiling for this team. I could see this team going undefeated, but that would require this offense to really play at a high level and also the defense to be much improved. And so 12-0 is pretty unlikely, but I feel like with the way the schedule is, there's not one game on this schedule where I feel like it's a guaranteed loss for LSU. So I think 10-2 is my prediction, 7-5 for the floor in case things go terribly wrong, but I really don't expect that. I feel like, though, 9-11 wins is a pretty reasonable bet on where LSU is going to be this upcoming season. I feel like this is going to be a team that's maybe an SEC dark horse, one that kind of looms in the background. They're not going to win the conference, but they could definitely make some noise this season. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on LSU. Where do you think this team will be this upcoming season? And with that, I appreciate you guys all watching as always. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.